Look, I'm gonna be straight with you right now because this is where things get really uncomfortable for Browns fans. We're not talking about typical growing pains anymore. We're talking about watching a franchise actively choose to fail, and that's what makes this so infuriating. When you see Dillon Gabriel take the field every single week, you're not just watching bad quarterback play, you're watching organizational dysfunction play out in real time. Think about what happened after that Pittsburgh disaster. The entire football world saw it. 50 pass attempts for barely over 200 yards. That's not just inefficiency, that's borderline impossible to achieve if you're actually trying to move the football. You'd have to actively work to be that unproductive with that many opportunities. And here's what really gets under my skin about this whole situation. Gabriel isn't some rookie they're trying to develop. He's not a young kid who needs reps to figure out the NFL game. He's a guy they specifically chose, a guy Kevin Stefanski handpicked as his quarterback, and he's playing exactly like everyone outside that building knew he would play. The physical limitations were always there. Everyone could see them. The arm strength concerns, the reluctance to push the ball downfield, the tendency to bail from clean pockets. None of this is new information, but somehow the Browns convinced themselves they could scheme around it, that they could design an offense that would hide his weaknesses and amplify his strengths. Except here's the problem. When your quarterback can't threaten defenses vertically, when he refuses to take shots downfield, even when receivers are running wide open, there is no scheme that fixes that. You can't game plan your way out of a quarterback being fundamentally limited. And what kills me is watching the receivers deal with this. Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku aren't just frustrated, they're legitimately scared to catch passes from this guy. You saw it in that game. Njoku takes a hospital ball over the middle, gets absolutely crushed, and yeah, he holds on, but something breaks in that moment. Later in the same drive, there's another pass coming his way in traffic, and he just gives up on it, doesn't even try. That's not a receiver quitting on his team. That's a receiver who doesn't trust his quarterback to protect him. Jeudy had the exact same thing happen. Catches a ball, takes a huge hit, and the next time a similar route comes up, he's already thinking about the contact instead of the catch. That's poison for an offense. When your top targets start playing scared, start second guessing whether they should actually try to catch the football, you've lost them. Gabriel threw at least 3 passes in that game that should have been intercepted. At least 3. He got away with terrible decisions over and over because Pittsburgh defenders couldn't hold on to the ball. That's not good quarterback play that's being saved by bad defense. And sure, there were some drops. Sure, the offensive line had some breakdowns, but let's not pretend those things explain 50 pass attempts for 200 yards. That's not bad luck. That's systematic failure at the most important position on the field. Now people want to talk about whether SHEDEUR Sanders would actually be better in this situation. They want to debate whether he's really the answer or if he's just the shiny new toy everyone's obsessed with because he's not the current guy. But here's what that argument misses. It doesn't matter if SHEDEUR is perfect. It doesn't matter if he's going to come in and immediately transform into an elite NFL quarterback. What matters is that everyone in that building, everyone who watches this team practice every single day, knows he gives them a better chance than what they're currently rolling out there. Players don't go to their head coach asking for a quarterback change unless they genuinely believe the alternative is better. That doesn't happen just because guys are frustrated. It happens because they've seen enough in practice to know there's a real difference. And Stefanski keeps trotting out the same line every single week. Dillon gives us the best chance to win. At this point, that phrase has become a meme. It's been turned into jokes, edited into comedy clips, mocked on every sports show in the country. Because everyone knows it's not true. Everyone can see it's not true. The only person who seems to genuinely believe it is Kevin Stefanski himself, and that's terrifying for Browns fans because it means the guy making the decisions is either lying or he's completely lost touch with reality. Let's talk about what's happening in that locker room, because this is where things get really dangerous for a franchise. You can survive bad quarterback play. Teams do it all the time. You can survive losing games. That's part of football. What you cannot survive is losing the locker room. Once players stop believing in the coaching staff, once they stop trusting that the people making decisions actually want to win, everything falls apart. And that's exactly where Cleveland is heading right now. You've got offensive linemen asking why they're even blocking if the quarterback won't throw the ball downfield. You've got receivers openly questioning why they're running deep routes when they know Gabriel won't target them. You've got defensive players, guys who are out there playing their hearts out, watching the offense completely waste their efforts week after week. There was apparently a confrontation after the Pittsburgh game. A defensive captain got in Gabriel's face in the locker room. Words were exchanged. Other players had to separate them. Stefanski denied it happened, but multiple sources confirmed it did. And you know what? That defensive player was probably right to be angry. Imagine grinding through an entire game, playing great defense, keeping your team in position to win, and then watching your quarterback complete checkdown after checkdown while refusing to even try to score points. That's soul-crushing. That breeds resentment, and once that resentment takes root, once players start dividing into camps and questioning each other's competence, you're not just losing games anymore, you're destroying team chemistry. The worst part about all of this is watching a legitimate Super Bowl roster get wasted in real time. This Browns defense is absolutely elite. Top 5 in the league by almost every metric. The offensive line, when healthy, is one of the better units in football. They've got playmakers at receiver, a dynamic tight end, running backs who can contribute. Special teams have been solid. Every single piece is in place, except the one that matters most. And it's not even that they don't have the piece. SHEDEUR Sanders is right there on the roster. They have him. He's available. He's ready. And they're choosing not to use him while the season circles the drain. You want to know what's really going on here? This is about ego. This is about Kevin Stefanski being unable to admit he was wrong. He staked his reputation on Dillon Gabriel. He told ownership this was his guy. He convinced them to make Gabriel the starter. And now that it's failing spectacularly, he can't bring himself to pull the plug because doing so would mean admitting he made a catastrophic mistake in judgment. So instead, he's doubling down. He's riding this decision into the ground, taking the entire team with him because his pride won't allow him to change course. That's not leadership. That's stubbornness masquerading as conviction, and it's going to cost him everything. The national media has turned this into a complete circus. Every major analyst, every prominent voice in football, they're all saying the same thing. Start SHEDEUR Sanders. This isn't controversial. This isn't some hot take designed to generate clicks. This is the obvious, correct decision that everyone except the Browns coaching staff can see clearly. Stephen A. Smith said it's coaching malpractice. Skip Bayless, who disagrees with Stephen A. about everything, agreed with him on this. Colin Cowherd called it organizational stubbornness. Robert Griffin III tweeted about it. Former players, current analysts, respected football minds across the board are all aligned on this one point. Cleveland is making a massive mistake. And it's not just talking heads trying to stir up drama. Other NFL coaches, guys around the league who have no stake in Cleveland's success or failure, they're reportedly questioning Stefanski's decision-making behind closed doors. When your peers start wondering what you're doing, when people whose opinions actually matter in football circles are scratching their heads at your choices, that's when you know you've lost the plot. Stefanski has gone from being one of the more respected offensive minds in football to being the guy everyone points to as an example of ego overriding common sense. The fans have completely turned. This isn't just anger anymore. This is organized rebellion. Thousands of Browns fans have mobilized on social media, creating hashtags, trending topics, coordinated campaigns demanding change. They're making memes, producing video breakdowns, designing mock campaign ads for SHEDEUR. This is unprecedented in terms of fan unity around a single issue. Usually fan bases are divided. Some people support the current quarterback, others want change, and you get this messy debate. Not here, not now. The overwhelming majority of Browns fans are on the exact same page. Bench Gabriel, start Sanders. Do it immediately. When was the last time you saw an entire fan base this unified about anything? It doesn't happen often, and when it does, it usually means the fans are right and the organization is wrong. Here's what really haunts me about this situation. This was supposed to be the year. After decades of dysfunction, after parade of failed quarterbacks, after watching other AFC North teams succeed, while Cleveland wallowed in mediocrity, this was finally supposed to be different. They built a championship caliber defense. They invested in the offensive line. They brought in weapons. They had all the pieces in place to actually compete for something meaningful. And it's all being thrown away because one man refuses to make an obvious quarterback change. That's the tragedy here. Not that the Browns are bad. They're not bad. They're good everywhere except the one spot that matters most. And they're choosing to stay broken at that spot rather than try the fix that's sitting right there on their bench. Every game that passes makes this worse. Every week Gabriel starts, the anger grows. The media coverage intensifies, the locker room fractures a little more, and Stefanski's credibility evaporates further. There's going to be a point of no return here. There's going to be a moment where even if they finally do make the change to SHEDEUR, it'll be too late. The season will be unsalvageable. The damage will be done, and all anyone will remember is that Kevin Stefanski had the answer to his problems and refused to use it until it didn't matter anymore. That's coaching malpractice, that's organizational failure, and that's exactly where Cleveland is heading if something doesn't change immediately. What makes this even more frustrating is that everyone knows SHEDEUR has the tools. He's not some project quarterback who might develop eventually. He's not a raw athlete with potential but no polish. He's shown in practice that he has arm strength Gabriel doesn't have. He's demonstrated pocket presence and poise under pressure. He makes the reads faster. He's willing to challenge defenses vertically. Players in that building have seen it firsthand. They know what he can do, and they're begging for him to get the opportunity. When your own players are actively campaigning for a backup quarterback to get a shot, that tells you everything you need to know about how they view the current starter. The comparison to other quarterback controversies doesn't even apply here, because usually there's legitimate debate about who should start. Usually there are arguments on both sides. Maybe the veteran gives you better leadership. Maybe the young guy has more upside but makes more mistakes. Maybe it's genuinely close, and you can understand the coach sticking with his guy. None of that applies in Cleveland. This isn't close. Gabriel has shown over multiple games now that he cannot operate an NFL offense at even a mediocre level. He's not just struggling, he's actively detrimental to his team's chances of winning. Meanwhile, SHEDEUR represents the possibility of something better. Maybe he's great, maybe he's just okay, but okay would be a massive upgrade over what they currently have. That's not a difficult decision. That's not something you need to agonize over. You make the change and see what happens, because the status quo is already unacceptable. Time is running out for Kevin Stefanski. Every snap Dillon Gabriel takes moves the Browns closer to a lost season. Every game that passes with SHEDEUR on the bench pushes more players toward checking out mentally. Every week of this dysfunction makes it harder to believe the coaching staff has any idea what they're doing. At some point, ownership is going to have to step in. At some point, someone higher up the chain is going to look at this disaster and demand accountability. Because this isn't just about losing games. This is about watching a franchise self-destruct in slow motion while the solution sits unused. That's inexcusable. That's fireable. And if Stefanski doesn't make this change soon, he's not gonna have to worry about quarterback decisions anymore because he won't be the one making them. The Cleveland Browns are at a crossroads. They can continue down this path, riding Dillon Gabriel into irrelevance while their elite defense and talented roster go to waste. Or they can make the change everyone knows needs to happen, give Shedeur Sanders the keys to the offense, and at least give themselves a fighting chance to salvage something from this season. One option leads to more embarrassment, more dysfunction, and likely more coaching changes in the offseason. The other option offers hope, possibility, and the chance to actually compete. It really shouldn't be this complicated, but for Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns, apparently it is, and that might be the saddest part of all.